right, Catalyst Church, Christmas at the movies. We excited about this? Wow, okay. Well, maybe some of you just need to experience it first because you're like, oh, the candy was great, but I'm not sure about this, okay? Hey, a couple things real quick before we jump in. Very, very important, probably the most important thing right now, the most pressing need, hope for the holidays, okay? If you're new, if you don't know what it's all about, essentially it is probably the single biggest community outreach event that we do in a calendar year. I think last year some 1,500 plus kids had gifts given to them absolutely for free walking through this place. So here's what we do. We have partnered with Toys for Tots. We've partnered with Loaves and Fishes and all of the other area food banks. And we do one big Christmas holiday distribution on December 14th. But it takes a lot of manpower, okay? So we need your help. Very few of you have signed up. For those who have, very grateful. We need an army to make this event happen. I'm telling you, 1,500 kids getting free toys. It's incredible. On their way out, they get a food box full of everything they will need for their Christmas meal. And our time slots are only like 4 hours at a time. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put this up here. They already got it, okay? Just take your phones out, scan that QR code. If you have not signed up, there is no shortage of ways to help. If you want to wrap some gifts, we have a gift wrapping table. If you're thinking, well, I can't do that much or whatever, that's great. We need personal shoppers. We need people helping check people in. We need people attending the tables. And what we do is we turn this room into a giant toy store. Okay? And we put the dignity back in the hands of the parents to go through and pick out their own toys for their own children. It's amazing. Traditionally, Toys for Tots just looked at the age, looked at the gender, put in a toy they thought they'd like, hand them a bag. We said, no, let's let them shop. And so it's a joyful place. It's an incredible opportunity. So come on, get signed up. We need people to help set up a little bit on that Friday the 13th. And maybe we'll watch a scary movie afterwards. It'll be fun. Okay, and then we need, of course, 3 different shifts on the Saturday. Scan the code. You can go see what's available. We especially need help on the late shift on Saturday. So check that out. Get signed up. We'd love for you to participate in that. It's a great way to give back. It is more blessed to give. Give not just of your money, but of yourself, of your time, of your talents. And so ask you to give back for 3 or 4 hours on December 14th. So get signed up, do that. It's gonna be awesome. Also, no Catalyst students today after second service. People are still on their way back from Thanksgiving, so no Catalyst students today. And then Christmas Eve, let's talk about that for a moment, okay? 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on Christmas Eve, which is the 24th, okay? Just in case you didn't know, all right? The 24th, here in a few weeks, we've got Christmas Eve. It's gonna be incredible. We have a great experience planned, a great service where we can honor our Lord that day. But 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, why so early? Well, we know that a lot of families, they want to celebrate on Christmas Eve. I mean, that's the best day to celebrate Christmas Eve. And so we know you want to come on Christmas Eve. We also know a lot of people have traditions and dinners and all kinds of different things they want to do in the evening. So we just do those afternoon times. It'll get you in, it'll get you out so you can enjoy being with your family, okay? So 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock, make your plans now. Also, if you would be willing to bake some cookies, your favorite kind of Christmas cookie, a couple dozen or whatever, and bring those with you for our services, that would be awesome. We got a sign-up sheet in the back on your way out. Don't forget, just put your name down if you're willing to bake a couple dozen of your favorite Christmas cookies to bring and share with everybody else, all right? Last but not least, I want to give you a challenge, okay? 4 in 4. 4 in 4. On your way out today, there's a table right by the door. We have little business card size Christmas Eve invites, okay? There is nothing like the power of personal invitation. I can make posts on social media all day long. People aren't gonna come. You go and invite somebody personally and they will come. Statistically, they will come on personal invitation. So here's a challenge. 4 in 4. 4 people over the course of the next 4 weeks. We have 4 Sundays until Christmas Eve. So on your way out, grab those cards, find 4 people in your life who don't like hand it to your mom who's next to you in the seat next to you, okay? Right, 4 people who aren't here, people that you know who aren't connected into the church, and invite them to come with you save them a seat on Christmas Eve, okay? 4 people over the next 4 weeks. So grab those invites on your way out. We are so excited for that. But today we are ramping up to Christmas. We got Christmas at the Movies 2024, backed by popular demand. And we are kicking off this At the Movies series today. And I hope that you're as excited as I am, because I've been like counting down the days for like a month and a half now. I'm so excited. If you've never been with us for Christmas at the Movies, then you are in for a treat, okay? Because we only do this series maybe every couple of years or so, and this is the most fun that you will have during the Christmas season, all right? Now, 2 years ago, when we did this, we did it through the lens of following the 4 different seasonal themes of Advent, okay? So Justin talked about that today. The first seasonal meaning is hope. So it's hope, it's joy, it's love, it's peace. Those are the 4 Advent meanings or themes. We're not going to do that this year, okay? This year, we are just going to pull some spiritual truths as we find them from some of the most popular Christmas movies. And obviously, there will be certain themes that stand out as we go through the series, but we're going to let these 4 movies define their own themes, their own ideas, and their own truths for us as we find them, okay? Now, let me just say that also 2 years ago when we did this, it was the first time that some of you came to realize that Die Hard is in fact a Christmas movie, okay? And specifically, we did that on Hope Week, okay? There's tremendous hope in that movie if you watch it through the right lens. How many of you heard that message and you've never watched it the same? You're like, oh my gosh, right? None of you. That's great. I'm glad you pay attention. Okay, well, anyway, my whole first 10 minutes is setting up why it is a Christmas movie, making the case anyway. Unfortunately, we're not doing Die Hard again this year, okay? I know, you're sad. But we've got 4 different movies to cover. These have been handpicked, some great truths out of these, and I cannot wait to open with this one today. So that being said, if you're here and you've never been with us for At the Movies, let me just take a moment, tell you the why behind the what, okay? Here's why we do this. See, because when you read in the New Testament, you'll discover that Jesus was always communicating the bigger truths of God's kingdom as he taught the people using short little stories. Okay? We call them parables. But the word parable literally just means a simple story used to illustrate a spiritual lesson. That's what a parable is. And so in the same way that Jesus used these short stories, these parables, we are going to communicate. And he would do that to communicate to the people in his culture and in his context. And in the same way, I believe that movies are a modern day form of parables, right? It's storytelling. And so that's what we're going to be doing over these next 4 weeks. We're going to introduce a movie. I'll give you the storyline, and then we'll watch some clips from these movies, and then we'll see what truths we can pull out from these clips and apply to ourselves and apply to us on a faith level. So, week 1, here we go. Not much better way to kick this thing off than to look at one of my top 3 Christmas movies of all time, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, all right? So, we're gonna take a journey with the Griswold family today. It's gonna be awesome, all right? Now, how many of you, show of hands, you've seen Christmas Vacation? Raise your hands, okay? A few of you haven't. If you're under the age of like 40, you probably haven't. And that's okay. So if you haven't seen it, basically, here's what's going on, okay? It's about a guy, this dad, and his name is Clark Griswold. And all he wants to do, like his whole goal during the Christmas season is he wants to get everything just perfect, just right for his family during Christmas. I mean, he wants to have the most amazing Christmas ever. He wants to give his family all the best memories and do all the things you're supposed to do at Christmas time. The problem is, from the very opening scene, we're gonna see this, okay? From the very opening scene, things just don't go right for Clark. What he has built up in his mind about what a great Christmas should look like, it just does not go according to plan. Okay? So let's take a look at part of the opening scene, the first sign of trouble for Clark Griswold. Check this out. So, like, anyone can endure a few mishaps, right? I mean, like, for a while, Clark, he kind of rolls with the punches, and he's able to keep a great attitude despite, like forgetting the saw for the tree and having to dig it up by the roots. And it's easy to do that, like when you're feeling the Christmas cheer and when you have a little bit of hope, right? That seasonal Advent meaning that we recognize today. But having hope, it can energize you to endure a lot of difficult things, right? And Clark, he's got a lot of hope. He's got a hope for the picture perfect Christmas. And really, at the end of the day, that's what we all want out of the holiday season as well, right? I mean, just like Clark, this is a season that where many of us, we just want everything to go right for once, I mean, we clamor for that nostalgic Christmas experience, just like when you were a kid and everything was perfect and you remember it to be so glorious. In fact, there's a scene where Clark gets locked in his attic and he spends a day watching some old home videos of his own childhood Christmases. And in that scene, everything is just so peaceful and he's so happy as he's remembering his childhood. And like that, we love that nostalgic feeling. And we build it up in our minds what Christmas should be. But the reality of life is that oftentimes the idealistic isn't always the realistic. Well, Clark is determined to get this tree home and set up in his living room. And despite some more mishaps, he stays pretty positive. And he is adamant about having the best Christmas ever. Watch this. So you can almost see a sense of like wonderment all over Clark, right? I mean, even as he just has this grand vision of hosting Christmas and gathering the whole family. What do you say? I've always dreamed of having the big family Christmas, right? Everyone under my roof. And wonderment is a great place to be. Here in a moment, we're going to see a character from the story, a story in Luke chapter 10, who has that same kind of wonderment about her. And then there's another character in the story that's just the opposite. And we'll meet them in a few moments. But what we're going to see is the contrast between wonderment and apathy. Right? Two different characters experience the same circumstances with two completely different responses: wonderment and apathy. And here's the thing, we're about to see a shift in Clark, back to this story, from wonderment to apathy as well. Right? And the funny thing is that it really doesn't take much to see this change in his Christmas spirit. All it takes is the pressure of making sure that Christmas is picture perfect, right? And then adding more disappointment of things not going right. And before long, we'll see that Clark's tone has changed quite a bit. So we're going to watch this scene where he is completely lined like every square inch of the house with Christmas lights, and he like expects to have this grand moment, right? He brings all the family out into the front yard, and he's got this grand idea. He's gonna plug in the lights, and everything's just gonna be perfect. And let's see what happens. Check this out. Now, if you were paying attention in the scene, you can see a visible change, right, in his spirit, in his countenance. Right, he goes from so excited, right? Here's the buildup, and then he goes to plug it in, and you see it come off his face. It's really incredible, and it's so easy to feel that, isn't it? Like maybe you can't relate specifically to spending hours and hours stringing up lights on your house only to have them not turn on when you go to plug them in. But in other ways, all of us can relate to how he feels on some level, right? I mean, have you ever just like poured yourself into something, a project, a job, some activity, whatever, and you get so excited about the end result, but then it ends up not going the way you thought it would go? It's disappointing, isn't it? Disappointing. And the problem with disappointment is that when you have an expectation that goes unmet, there can be some real emotional baggage like attached to that. Emotions like sadness, frustration, even anger. We're going to see how this happens to Clark. The emotions just, he kind of suppresses them, but just like a backed up sewer, eventually it's all going to back up and come out. So we're going to see how this happens to Clark. And really, from about this point on in the movie, you see a really big shift in his character. He goes from hopeful, excited, just the wonderment of Christmas, to irritable and discouraged. So here's what happens. After that last clip, Clark stays out all night long and all day the next day working on the lights, trying to figure it out, trying to get them to work, checking every single bulb. So by this point, he's already pretty frustrated. But he is like all in on getting these lights to work. So let's watch this together and see what happens next. Check this out. So yeah, there's that famous scene, right, that you see every Christmas season, right? That famous scene where the plugging in, he's like, right, to get it plugged in. And so here's Clark, right, completely consumed by making everything just right. But when the lights don't work, he's just like, he has this complete meltdown, right? And so much so, he punches Santa Claus in the face, right? And he kicks all the reindeer, and he's taking out all of his frustration because after all of his labor, after all of his hard work, it's just not going the way that he hoped it would. And the interesting thing is that his story, or more specifically, his attitude and his approach is similar to this character from Luke in chapter 10. Her name is Martha, right? Is Martha. And so we're going to look at this story of this little confrontation that Martha has with her sister, and her sister's name is Mary. Because just like Clark's family, right, like she's looking at him going, man, what are you doing? Why are you so intense? Just like that, we are going to see a similar type of confrontation in this story. See, because what happens is this: the whole controversy starts when Jesus shows up to Martha's house with his 12 disciples. Now, ladies, if you could just imagine for a moment, right? Just all of a sudden, you're not really planning on this, but you've got 13 dudes who've been walking around the desert for God knows how long, and now they show up to your house, and they want to eat, they want to hang out, they just want to lounge around and just kind of chill in your house, right? And one of those guys just happens to be the Messiah. And so you can imagine for Martha, it's a little bit stressful. And just like Clark Griswold, she wants everything to be perfect for this particular occasion. But her sister Mary, she sees things just a little bit different. So we'll read the story and see how the confrontation unfolds, and then we'll talk about it, okay? Luke chapter 10, this will be on the screen for you, or you can always use that YouVersion Bible app if you don't have a Bible. But Luke 10, starting in verse 38, and we'll read through verse 42. Says this, says, now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. So we get this idea, right, that Martha just wants everything to be on point, right? She's like the ultimate homemaker, right? I mean, she's put in the work, you know, she's gone to Pinterest and got all these great ideas for this little party, you know, and then she's got all these disciples, their own little individually, like, you know, wrapped cups and with their name on it, you know, and she's got a Pharisee pinata for them to whack away at later on, you know, and it's going to be awesome, you know, and she's just so excited about planning this. I wish I had a Pharisee pinata. Yeah. In fact, the Bible doesn't say this, but the tradition holds that Martha's last name is actually Stewart, okay? She is like the OG Martha Stewart, right? Just without the prison time, you know? And anyway, so Martha, she wants everything to be absolutely perfect. She's working hard, she's preparing, she's got some very big expectations. And then there's her sister, right? Oh, sweet Mary, God bless her heart, right? That's what we say when we mean somebody's annoying. Oh, God bless them, right? Or bless their little heart, right? There's Mary. She's not doing anything except just sitting there. She's listening to Jesus, but she's just sitting around, right? Well, Martha is keenly aware that she's doing all the work. Meanwhile, her sister Mary isn't doing squat. And so what happens next is really, really interesting, because you would think that Martha would just try to be somewhat discreet in this situation, right? Like maybe she would stand off to the side, kind of out of sight of Jesus, but in the sight of Mary, like, hey, psst, get your lazy butt in here and help me, right? But she doesn't do that. She doesn't do that. Instead, she has this Clark Griswold type of a meltdown, right? And she just marches her butt into the room. She storms in. She literally would have had to interrupt Jesus in the middle of his teaching, his talking, and she gets right up in Jesus' grill, right? And she's like, listen, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me alone to do all the serving? So I need you to tell her to come and help me. So she comes right up to Jesus, and she gets on his case for not caring about her and everything that she is doing. God, don't you see everything that I'm doing? We have these moments, right? God, don't you see what I'm doing? Don't you see what I've done? Don't you see how good I've been acting? All the things I'm serving at Hope for the Holidays, right? That's the brownie points in heaven, right? I mean, another jewel in my crown. Don't you see what I'm doing? And then she proceeds to basically accuse Jesus of not telling Mary what to do. And then she goes as far as to order Jesus. It's amazing. She's like, you tell her to help me. And this is just bold. I mean, Martha orders Jesus to order Mary to get up and help her. I mean, Martha is over it. She is fed up with her sister. She is so irritated with Mary. She's gotten on her sister's last nerve. And so Martha, she's just not even holding back anymore. She's like, no holds barred. And this is kind of funny to me because it reminds me of another character from this movie. See, Mary is to Martha as Cousin Eddie is to Clark, okay? Let me just show you a very accurate picture, I promise you, of how Martha sees Mary in this story, okay? Check this out. Okay? I promise you, as Martha looked at Mary, that's what she saw, right? Like she was like, that is the best picture of how Martha could possibly have seen her sister. Well, what does Jesus do? I mean, Jesus, he could have gotten really upset about this. He could have harshly corrected Martha. And especially as a rabbi in this culture, this was incredibly disrespectful for Martha to approach Jesus in that manner. But Jesus answers her in a very gentle way. And that's why he says her name twice, right? He says, Martha, Martha. He's not saying it in a condescending way. Instead, he says it to her in a way that's gentle, that's caring, that's acknowledging maybe what she's experiencing and what she's feeling. And he answers her by saying, you are so anxious. You're so troubled over all these things. But listen, there's only one thing that's really important. You see, Martha, Mary has chosen that which is good, the good portion, he says. And I won't take that away from her. So if she wants to stay here, she can stay here. And she's actually choosing to do what's more important in this moment. Now, oftentimes, the way this passage has been communicated is that Martha is this like stressed out, type A, GCD, get crap done, task-oriented woman. And Mary is just like super chill, like a flower child, hey, it's all good, right? Whatever. And because Martha gets corrected by Jesus while Mary gets affirmed by Jesus, the teaching is often that we need to be more like Mary, right? Just sit at the feet of Jesus. Don't worry about all this stuff. Just go with the flow, But for many people, that's a really, really hard thing to do. And so that's kind of a harsh interpretation and application of the story. And anyone who is, for anyone who is that type A, very driven, get stuff done kind of person will often feel put off or rebuked by this particular lesson. But here's the thing. The point is, Jesus is not attacking Martha's temperament. Because again, let's understand what's going on here, right? Here's these 13 dudes who undoubtedly are hungry and they are tired and they need something to eat. And for sure, their feet were filthy from wandering around for so long, right? And it's not like Martha could just pull out her iPhone and open up the Domino's app, right? And 30 minutes or less, she's feeding these guys. I mean, somebody has got to kill the chickens and shred the cheese and dice the tomatoes and press and the tortillas and all this stuff, right? And remember, this is Martha's house. This is Martha's house. This is not Mary's house. For all we know, Mary is still living in her junky, beat-up RV, parking in nice neighborhoods and emptying her toilet in the storm sewer in front of Martha's house, right? For all we know. I mean, she's just kind of there, just lounging around, going with the flow, not really getting much done. Martha's the one who's got the household. She's making things happen. Moment of truth, if I had to choose, I would probably want to go to Thanksgiving at Martha's house, right? Because I know that there's gonna be this amazing food, and it's gonna be ready when I get there, and it's gonna taste great. So my point is this: before we start ripping Martha for just being who she is, remember the point of this is not to slam the type A people. So again, Jesus isn't correcting Martha's temperament. Where we find the problem is in one word that's buried in verse 40. Let's look at it again. Verse 40. Jesus, he says, Martha, you are what? You are distracted. You're distracted by a lot of things. And you're distracted, Martha. And it's not that she's busy. It's that she's not trying to do something good. It's not that she's wanting to show care by serving in the way that she just knows how to serve, right? It's in that she's choosing what is good over that which is best in that moment. She's distracted. And so what I want to do as we look not only to this truth, but with Christmas and all of that in general, but also as it refers to life in general, what I want to do is I want to give you 3 questions that you can ask when life begins to overwhelm you. Okay? 3 questions to ask when life begins to overwhelm you. In fact, let's call them the 3 wise questions, okay? It's Christmas season, right? We got 3 wise men. We'll do 3 wise questions. How about that, all right? So, 3 wise questions to ask when you're starting to feel overwhelmed. Number 1, first question, if you're taking notes, is this: what is most important in this situation? What is most important in this situation? Right? See, Jesus, he wasn't saying that serving isn't good, that serving isn't important. In fact, Jesus was a servant. Okay, so he's not saying serving isn't important or that being busy is necessarily bad. What the real problem is basically is that in this particular moment, the situation was different. Why? Well, because in the book of John, we find out that Martha lived in a village called Bethany, okay, which is only about 2 miles away from Jerusalem. And it's very, very close to Jerusalem. And the reason why that's significant is because Jerusalem, just a few miles away, is a place that we recognize on Good Friday. Not Black Friday, okay, Good Friday. And this is the place where Jesus is crucified. Jesus is executed in Jerusalem. And so at this point in the life and the ministry of Jesus, the story of Jesus at Martha's house is very, very close to the end of his life. In fact, a massive chunk of the Gospels take place toward the end of Jesus' life. I mean, half of the book of John is just the last week of his life, okay? So a huge piece of the content of all four Gospels really has to do with the very final moments, the closing moments of Jesus. So here in Luke 10, as Jesus is visiting Martha's home, for some reason, it seems like Mary kind of just senses or picks up on that. And she hones in on this idea that, you know what? I don't know how much longer I'm going to get to just sit at the feet of Jesus. Right? I may never get a chance like this again to just sit and listen to the words of my Savior. The problem that Martha had was not that she was busy, but that she was confusing what was urgent for what was important. So it's very important that we ask ourselves, especially in a season like this, right? I mean, come on. I mean, Thanksgiving was just a few days ago. It was crazy. It was so late. You know, we're already, it's December 1st, in case you didn't know. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, right? It's December 1st. And so we're getting in this season that's just like, it's crazy, and there's so much to do. And right, and we're coming to the end of a year that for many people, let's just be honest, was a very challenging season where you had demands, you know, throwing you all over the place. And when that happens, just stop and ask yourself, is this just simply urgent, or is this truly important? See, because just because it may be urgent does not mean that it's really important. For example, this hit me like a ton of bricks. I got to keep it together. Hit me like a ton of bricks this last week. I started going to the gym and working out with my two boys. I know you could probably tell, right? I'm looking pretty good. It's actually incredibly painful right now, so we'll get there, okay? But one night after our workout with my oldest son, Noah, he just started talking to me about his future plans. Noah's a senior in high school this year, and I have no idea how we got here so quickly. He voted for the first time last month, right? And I'm just so relieved that Kanye did not run again, because I think Noah might have voted for him, you know? But I love my son so much. And I'll tell you, I have just struggled this week thinking about the few short months that he has left in high school. And I'm coming to the realization that he likely won't be at home for much longer. So let me just invite you into my struggle for a moment, and maybe this will resonate with some of you. But my struggle is that I think and I feel things like I haven't done enough as a father to prepare him for life. I haven't done enough to show him what it means to be a godly man who really leads his family well and really is sold out to Jesus. I mean, sure, he hears all of my sermons. Great. He hears all my sermons, but he sees all my actions. And I feel like I failed him on some level. And so all of a sudden, I find myself asking the question more than ever before when it comes to our kids, what is most important? What are the things that we need to be spending time doing now? Because this is a season. It's a short season. It's a very quick period of time. And I don't mean the Christmas season. I mean the time that we have our kids at home. So we can spend all of our time doing these ancillary things and assuming that it's all just going to last forever and it's going to be amazing, but it isn't. And we have to realize that it's not about being busy or type A or type B or whatever. It's not about temperament. It's about what's important right now. And Jesus affirms that what Mary did in that moment showed that she understood what's most important. And that leads me to my second question, wise question number 2, which is this. What is most needed of me by others? What do others need from me the most? What's most needed? See, because when Jesus looks at Martha and says, man, you are so anxious, you're so troubled by all of these things, but only one thing is actually necessary. What did he mean by that? Well, here's what he meant. Jesus meant that he knew that his time was short. And he sees Martha just like pulling out all the fine china and decorating the house and doing whatever she's doing, right? And she's like, okay, time out. I don't need that, right? He's like, I don't need that right now, Martha. That's not what I need. I know you're trying to help. I love that about you. But sweetheart, listen to me. I know you're trying to do what's right, but I don't need that right now. Maybe 2 years ago or even 6 months ago. But right now, this moment doesn't call for that. What I need right now, Martha, is I just need people sitting and listening to me because I don't have much time. Right now, I need people listening. And I need to be able to share who I am with you. And by the way, that's what these people need as well. Because this is a message that when I'm gone, guess what? Your job begins. You are carrying forth this command, this message. So Jesus knew that Mary needed this because she is going to look back on her life someday and she's going to recount every single moment that she had with her Savior. And the thing that we have to remember is that oftentimes we want to serve people in the way that we are wired to serve them. And that's not necessarily bad, but it doesn't mean that it's always what they need in that moment. So part of maturity in your faith, part of your maturity as a follower of Jesus, part of being self-aware, part of growing into being a mature Christian is to ask yourself, what is it that people need from me right now? I get a lot of people who they're like, hey, I need you. I'm like, do you need me, right? Do you want me or do you want help, right? Because I can't always provide the solution. So that's fine if you need me, but do you want me or do you want help, right? And sometimes that has to be the question. For example, every time I meet with someone, I'm always trying to be aware of what they need the most in that moment. Because my natural tendency is to just like try and give them a lot of encouragement and a lot of great godly advice, and that's not always what they need, right? I have to be very, very careful at times as I meet with people not to just take over conversations because according to my leadership portrait personality identifier, I'm a raconteur. I'm a storyteller. Right? I love to tell stories. I'm not even a good storyteller, but I love to do it, right? And so I've got to be very, very aware when I meet with people of how I'm responding. And so I ask the question, what's most needed from me by others right now? What Jesus needed from Martha was not all the pomp and circumstance. Right? But she was thinking about serving in the way that she thought was most helpful. And you know what can be really challenging? Sometimes, like when we serve, it becomes less about who we are supposed to be serving and more about us. This is just kind of a natural challenge that we find in serving. Just think about Clark Griswold for a moment, right? I mean, even though it's a silly movie, right? At the end of the day, everything from the Christmas tree being perfect to the lights being the brightest to putting his Christmas bonus towards a swimming pool, everything he's trying to do really boils down to the fact that it's kind of all about Clark. He just wants to do everything the way he wants it to be done. And the whole family is like, why do you even care about all this stuff? We don't need this. And the answer is because somewhere along the way, it all became about Clark. So we have to be very careful when we're serving others to check our motivation, to check our heart and make sure that we're really trying to help others, not just making it about us. I'll never forget seeing a buddy from Bible college who went over, we call it, what do we call it? We call it vacation missions or something like that. A buddy of mine went over to like Africa, right, to go serve in a village with these children. And it was great, but he's like all these selfies, right? Oh, look, hashtag serving the kids, right? And like posting the whole time. I'm just like, bro, like you're missing the point. You're trying to look great. I get it. So we have to be very careful about not making it about us. And then number three, third wise question to ask. And really, the most important one that each of us need to ask ourselves today is this. What is crowding out Jesus? What is it that's crowding out Jesus? See, the story of Mary and Martha didn't randomly or by chance just happen to make it into the book of Luke, right? It's not like they were, that they had a quota of stories to fill, and Luke figured, well, I may as well throw this one about here in there about these sisters because I'm getting, kind of running out of great ideas, No, this story is placed incredibly strategically. You know why? Because all throughout the book of Luke, there are scenarios where Jesus is teaching. But the question is, are the people really listening to his words, or are they just nodding along because they know they're going to get some bread and some fish? That's why when Jesus is telling the parable of the four soils in just 2 chapters earlier in Luke 8, he's trying to make a difference in the way that his followers hear them. And so he tries to make this point. Check this out. He's talking about a sower throwing out and sowing seed. And he says that, he says this is about where some of the seed landed. Listen to how Jesus describes this particular part of where the seed landed. It falls among the thorns and the weeds. He says this, Luke 8:14. Check this out. He says, and as for what fell among the thorns, they are those. Okay, so he's saying the thorns are like people who hear, but as they go on their way, they are choked by the cares and the riches and the pleasures of life, and their fruit does not mature. He's talking about seed, but he's really talking about the word of God and how we hear it and how we apply it. And he says when the seed falls on some thorns and some weeds, right? Then the cares and the riches and the pleasures and the anxieties and the worries and the stresses and the pursuits of all of that to be a distraction from what Jesus really wants for us. Now, let me just get a little bit pastoral for a moment, okay, as I wrap this thing up for today, because I have a deep concern. When I look at my own life, and a deep concern when I look at the lives of those who are in the church or have come through the church at some point or another. But when I look at our culture in which we live, the problem I see and the concern I have is this, that it's very easy to be the kind of people who just check the box. Right? We just check the box and say, yep, I'm a Christian, and I know it because I go to church. Yep, I'm a Christian, and I know that because I've got the bumper stickers, and I like the music, and I wear the jewelry, or whatever. Just checking the boxes. Maybe even, well, I gave so much. Okay, did I get exactly 10% in the last calendar? Yep. Oh, man, I am definitely in with God, right? Yep, I checked. I serve, hey, forget Hope for the Holidays. I'm serving there. I'm serving to all the stuff, every event, I'm here. Whenever the doors are open, I'm here. I'm serving. I'm giving of myself, right? Check the box. And all of that is great. All of that is fine and good, but my fear is that we will get to the end of our lives and we will realize that the fruit never matured. And we'll realize that we pursued all the wrong things. That we pursued the urgent, not the important. And what Jesus is saying through this parable is that you can live your life in such a way that the things I was trying to do in you will never actually happen because you are so incredibly distracted with stuff that doesn't matter. It's easy to be so enamored with all these wonderful things and beautiful things and all the holiday stuff and it's so great, right? But so much so that you can go through your entire life and miss the words of Jesus. Listen, you don't want to get to the end of your life. The band's going to come back up. You don't want to get to the end of your life and wish that you had spent more time at the feet of Jesus. You don't want to get to the end of your life and find out that I should have been a little bit more like Mary. just sitting at the feet of my Savior, reading his word, studying his word, understanding his word, applying his word. If given the choice between a good thing or the best thing, choose to be a Mary. Choose to be a Mary. So what I'm asking you to do today as we respond to the message is the same thing that Jesus asked Mary and Martha to do. Okay, for some of you, just sit and listen for a moment. Just sit, just be. And ask yourself, in light of this message, and in light of this Christmas season and whatever challenges may be even going on in your life, what is it that's really important? Because the moment is gone like that. Hey, I just want to encourage you as we go out week one, that you would just be able to just draw to the forefront of your minds as you go into this week, but more than that, as you go throughout this season, that you will keep that in mind. To think of that which is most important. What's most important in this season? Not just what's urgent, because there's going to be plenty of urgent. But my prayer for you is that the Lord will just draw that truth to the forefront of your mind, that you'll be able to give yourself over to things in this season that are good, that are godly, things that he has for you, ways that you get to be a blessing to others. A great place to start, may I just submit to you, is with serving at Hope for the Holidays. So make sure also on your way out here in just a moment that you grab some of those four and four, okay? Some of those invite cards, be at a table right as you walk out. Just 4 little cards, right? Find 4 people over the course of the next 4 weeks. Extend that which is most important to them during this season, okay? Before I let you go, I just got one more clip I've got to show you. Check this out. All right, the best scene in the movie by far. Hey, Merry Christmas. Have a great day. We'll see you next Sunday for week 2 of Christmas at the movies.